UFC 290 is in the bag, and it has been an incredible pay-per-view. Mark and I are going to go over our fallout, but before we do, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe as we have brand new videos every single week. So, Mark, let's start with the main event. We had Alexander Volkanovski defeating Yair Rodríguez by TKO in the third round.
It was, Alexander Volkanovski, he proved that he is well and truly featherweight king. We thought this before. This has just stamped out any doubt so far. Yair had good moments. He really did have good moments. He had a lot of success with his leg kicks and his, head kicks. That acted as a jab, didn't it?
Yeah.
His head kicks act like a normal fighter would throw a jab. But Alex, ended up, that flurry at the end, Dwain, was ridiculous. And then the slam, getting on top of him, you can't dispute that stoppage. Great job there. Even Yair was nodding his head. It was just an incredible moment and another win in the bag for Alexander Volkanovski.
Yeah, exactly that. And Yair did have moments, but moments aren't enough to become champion. You need to be consistent. Yeah. And Volk just proved how consistent he can be. And you're right, that final flurry at the end was amazing. I was shocked. He came up with this incredible striking combination, took the advantage, slammed him down, and just wailed on top of him and got that stoppage. Genuinely, it's an amazing fight. And it feels like, can anybody now doubt Alexander Volkanovski as being the featherweight GOAT?
I don't think you can, honestly. There's always going to be competitors. We even said it ourselves, like Tuporia, just because he's making noise and he's coming off a win as well. You always think, oh, well, maybe this is the guy. But you're like, as it stands right now, the names that Volk has on his resume, I don't think you can dispute it. He's got to be. He's just so good. Always tune in for a Volk fight. And he just turned it on. You said it before, it becomes a different fighter every round. The very first round, very much a feeling out process on both sides. And then eventually, we got some ground control, some strikes, opened up a huge cut on Yair's forehead in the second round. And since then, he just absolutely turned it on.
Yeah, he turned it on as much as he possibly could. And like anytime Yair was getting some success, like you said, Volk switched it up completely. So Yair was getting some success with the leg kicks. So then Volk just kept switching stances, and that leg was no longer available. And he just took every advantage he could get. And I'm incredibly excited to see what Volk does next, whether he does go up a division completely or whether he fights Topuria. I am excited for that Topuria fight, and it does seem like that's really on the cards for next. So then we move on to the co-main event. Brandon Moreno, unfortunately, has lost the belt in his first defense to Pantoja. Mark, this fight was incredible, and I think probably fight of the night. How did you feel about the fight overall,
though? I actually thought it was a really good fight. I thought my initial thought process was zigzagging from, oh, no, I think Brandon's going to get this done, definitely, to this isn't going to go to decision, to all of a sudden... We might have this. Oh, wait, here we go. We've got crowning a new champion. It was, I thought Pantoja looked out of there in the second round. I thought he looked knackered. I thought he looked beat up, that kind of thing. But championship level, that kind of thing, and he just switched on. They made the right adjustments. Moreno was in it until the end. This wasn't a one-sided victory, unless you're one of the judges who thought that Brandon won every single round.
That's ridiculous, isn't it? Of course, it was tricky with this fight because I actually didn't know who'd won at the end, because you felt like they could have argued it either way. But you're right. Pantoja looked exhausted at the start of that second round, but he looked exhausted through the whole fight. And it just felt like the whole time, it felt like a finish was going to come from either guy. And it was just such an excellent fight, and I loved every second of it. But do you think they'll get an instant rematch, or do you think we'll get to see some different fights with these two guys?
Well, this will be the second time that Moreno would be in a quadrilogy, to be fair. But honestly, I don't think anyone would complain about that either. I don't think anyone would, especially when the first fight was on the Ultimate Fighter. They're both very young, very inexperienced, that kind of thing. The second fight was ages ago. I mean, come on, especially the flyweight division. We're trying to get some names. This has actually really boosted the flyweight division in general as a whole. It's shook it up completely, rather than just having, obviously now Davison's left. You've just got Brandon at the top level. You don't want it to end up like featherweight, if you will, where it's just one dominant champion. You like a bit of back and forth, mix and match.
Yeah. Well, it is a real back and forth division. It feels like this belt has been passed over non-stop. Well, Brandon just can't seem to keep hold of it. And it's such a shame. But yeah, I think we probably will get that rematch because I'm not sure who'd even get that title shot next, because there's no way that guy who beat Kai Kara France is going to get a title shot. He doesn't deserve it. He probably should have lost that fight, really. But, you know, it is what it is. But now we move on, Mark, to one of the most heartbreaking moments of the night. Robert Whittaker was KO'd by Dricus du Plessis in the second round, should I say. How are you, Mark? Let's just turn this into a therapy session right now.
Yeah, let's do that. Just get the chair out and your notepad, and I'll just burst into tears. Like I said in the live stream, Dwayne, I feel like I'm going to suppress this now, and 15 years later, I'll start screaming at one of my children or something like that. Just built up tension. Seriously though, like you can't knock du Plessis. You know, it was the underdog, and a lot of people wrote him off, myself included. That's just me being a fanboy. I'm sorry to say to people that I didn't actually cry. Although someone commented on the stream saying that, you know, you didn't cry when you said that you would do when Robert got beat. But you can't knock him, really. You know, he's knocked off Robert Whittaker. Anyone who beats Whittaker deserves a title shot, 100%.
Yeah, 1000%. There is no disputing that Dricus deserves that title shot. Anyone saying otherwise is a moron. I'm sorry, but you're stupid. He defeated one of the best middleweights on the planet in the second round. And, you know, I personally didn't expect it. I really did just think that he had that one round to get it done. Because I did say I think Dricus has a lot of KO power. He's a big, strong guy. But I just don't think his gas tank will hold up. But maybe that nose operation actually worked for him, and maybe it did help. But I didn't expect it. I did not expect Dricus to knock out Whittaker in that way. But the thing is, I know we say it just takes one punch, but this was a sequence of punches, and he caught him as he was coming in. And it's just, you know, it's a shame for Whittaker. I'm curious where Whittaker goes next now, because, you know, he's beat everyone else in that division. Does he just hold back?
That's the upsetting.
Yeah.
It's the upsetting thing, isn't it? Because you're like, oh, yeah, you've got fresh blood for the title, but at the same time, like, where does the loser go? You know, I never thought I'd call Robert Whittaker that, but, you know, in the sense that, Dwayne, people remember where they were for the moon landing. They remember when JFK was shot, and you'll always remember where you were when Robert Whittaker was knocked out by Dricus. But leading on from that, following that, we had Israel Adesanya enter the octagon in what should have been like an intense moment. It turned into a real cringy moment where it was like Anthony Joshua taking the microphone from Usyk. It was just weird, wasn't it? But then, like, it there's so heavy leaning on this, where you're from, South Africa, all this kind of thing. And then at the end, Joe Rogan asked Dricus something about, like, the fight in general, and Izzy just grabbed the microphone. Dricus did the right thing. He just walked off with his hands in the air, you know, like, not entertaining it anymore. It was just painful.
I know, and it's such a shame because I am a big fan of Izzy. I really like him, but for me, it was just too far. He was just yelling every slur under the sun, and I just thought, just have a bit of class. You're the champion, you know. You're supposed to make them look bad, not the opposite way. You know, they're supposed to come to you. And he looked a bit foolish, to be honest. But
I thought so. It's that usually contenders have got to prove themselves to the champion, but that was like Izzy's got a big motive. He's got to prove himself to someone, a new contender.
But
you know,
why?
It's just
But
I don't
why
know.
Does he
It
need
just
to prove himself? Right?
That entire
he should have,
segment.
That's the thing. He feels so arrogant and so confident, and then yet all the time, at the same time, he seems so unconfident. Like, you don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You're the champion of the world. You know, you should be at the top, right at the top. You know, you don't need to prove yourself to anyone. But, you know, it's a tricky one. It's such a shame that he ruined this amazing moment with such a terrible promo. But I am still excited for that fight, and it's only 2 months away. But Mark, just a quick one. What's your quick prediction for that fight if it does happen?
I'd never bet against Israel. I'd probably say Israel gets it done third round. I'm going to say very specific. Well, that's my very early prediction. What do you think?
I'm exactly the same. I think Izzy's just too tall, too decent a striker. And, you know, I find Dricus won that fight, but come on. I mean, he was having a lot of problems. He was getting caught a lot. And you know, Izzy's got some real KO power. He's shown that, and I think he'll get Du Plessis out of there. But let's move on. We had my boy Dan Hooker versus Jalin Turner, and he got the decision win. And I was concerned for Hooker during this fight because, you know, he got dropped, he was covered in blood, and it felt like that was it. It was over for him, but he managed to get it done. Did you expect Dan to win this fight, Mark?
No, I didn't. And it wasn't a complete write-off because, you know, Dan always brings it, but you just think he could do with getting another win, to be fair, could Dan. And I think with Turner, he can definitely turn it on. But he just seemed to, he was exhausted, wasn't he, Turner, towards the end. And Dan could just, you know, throw combinations at him. Them knees are dangerous as well.
Yeah.
You know, especially with the new haircut that he's got, like you said in the stream, he's like Ric Flair when he's covered in blood. It was, yeah, but I mean, happy for Dan Hooker to be back in the win column. Again, as greedy fans, we're already talking about what next for him, and you just think, well, is he going to be pushing into that top 10 for an opponent? I mean, not his ranking, but his opponent. Yeah. But that's the name of the game, though, isn't it? You always think, what's next? What's next? You can't just relish in the moment.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the problem, isn't it, with being MMA fans? We're always excited for what's the next fight, who's going to fight them, and because there's fights every week, that's kind of the questions you have to ask, isn't it? And the thing is with Hooker, you know, he will now be in the top 10 again, but he's a big name as well. And people need to remember that. So he could jump up and fight anyone in the top 5 as well. You know, he could fight someone like Dariush or Faziev quite easily. And I wouldn't think anyone would bat an eyelid if he fought someone like that. I'd love to see him and Faziev fight. That'd be a bloodbath. But, you know, Dan really showed that there's levels to this, didn't he? He showed how composed he could stay because, you know, he got dropped in the second, was it? It's covered in blood. I thought it was going to be the end. And then he managed to turn it around. And in that second round, he was seconds away from finishing Turner via submission. I mean, I was so excited there. But, you know, I am incredibly excited to see what both guys do next, really. But let's move on to the fight, the opening fight we had. Nickal versus Val Woodburn making his debut in the UFC. Mark, did you think that Val Woodburn had any chance at all?
Well, just my little sneaky $5 bet did, but hope is all I had. It was, honestly, it's a hard one is this, because when you do break it on paper, you think, you know, well, Val, you know, he was undefeated and he was a champion in a different organization. He came in and Bo proved that he has got hands, well, that he can strike. It's not just grappling, but again, we didn't get to see much of it. So it's almost like, yeah, this was just a quick lily pad jump, and then move on to the next one. You know, he came out and blished. He could fight on the fight night next week if he really wanted to. It's just Bo Nickal, yeah, he's got it. I mean, I'm well on the hype train, Dwain. I know we haven't seen him properly tested with a contender, but at the same time, just ride it while it's here. Enjoy it while it's here, because, you know, the competition's going to get tougher and tougher the further on he progresses in his career.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see what Bo can do next. And I mean, obviously there wasn't much to see in this fight. It was, a 30-second knockout, so I think it was incredibly quick. Poor Val just trudged forward and just Bo caught him and just, you know, got him out of there. And yeah, you're right. With Bo, it feels like he could fight next week. He could probably fight. He might even fight the next pay-per-view, because Tracy Gore, depending, I don't know why he was pulled out of the fight, but we could easily see these two guys fight again at UFC 291, 292, or 293 very, very easily. But overall, it was an incredible card. And after UFC 288 and 289, this card felt massive, and it felt like the UFC was back. But I do think that's all we've got time for. Thank you for watching. If you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help us out.